I am Alyssa Melby, Voter Services Chair of the League of Women Voters of Northfield and Cannon Falls. I would like to welcome you to the Northfield School Board Candidate Forum. We thank the candidates and the audience for attending today and our internet audience for viewing. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose a political party or a candidate for office. Sponsorship of this forum is a public service providing you with an opportunity to hear the candidates discuss important issues face-to-face. The views expressed here today are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. Sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement by the League of any particular candidate. There is never enough time to cover all of the issues. If you feel that your question was not addressed, please contact the candidate or candidates directly after the forum. And now I would like to introduce our moderator, Linda McLoon, a certified moderator from the Roseville League of Women Voters.
Thank you, Alyssa. I am Linda McLoon. I'm a resident of Ramsey County and a trained moderator for the League of Women Voters. Me llamo Linda McLoon. Vivo en el condado de Ramsey. Soy moderadora capacitada para la Liga de las Mujeres Votantes. This year, the citizens of Northfield School District 659 are electing 3 individuals to serve on the school board. All candidates listed on the Minnesota Secretary of State website as registered candidates were invited to participate in this forum today, so welcome. The agenda today is as follows. All candidates will have 2 minutes for their opening statements. Candidates unable to attend today's forum were given the opportunity to read an opening statement, for us to read an opening statement on their behalf, but I believe you are all present. I will then ask questions with 1 minute per response, but I may vary the timing on several questions at my discretion. I will rotate starting order randomly to ensure that no one consistently follows a particular candidate. At the end of the question period, you will have 1 minute for your closing statements, again, ordered randomly. Questions will be a mixture of those emailed to the League of Women Voters of Northfield and Cannon Falls prior to the forum, as well as questions from the audience in attendance. And please remember that questions, this is to the audience, need to be addressed to all candidates. Our timekeepers, here in the front row, generously donating their time, students at volunteers from St. Olaf, will have a 30-second sign, a 15-second sign, and a stop sign. You may finish your sentence, but we ask that you then stop to ensure that everyone has the same amount of time to answer. I would now like to introduce our 6 candidates running for Northfield School Board, beginning with their opening statements, and we'll start with Tom Baraniak.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Tom Baraniak. I'm completing my first term on the school board and look forward to using my experience in the next 4 years. I've lived in Northfield for over 20 years. I'm the electronics and lab manager in physics and astronomy at Carleton College. I've been there over 20 years and have served on various Carleton boards and committees, and I'm currently doing a second go-round as co-chair on the Exempt Staff Steering Committee. I am board president for Northfield Daycare and a member of the board of the Cannon Valley Makers. I serve on the school board liaison to the City of Northfield Human Rights Commission and serve on the School Board Facilities Advisory Committee, the Equity Advocacy Committee, and Northfield Forward. I am the parent of 2 recent graduates, classes of 2020 and 2021. I, like many of you, see the impact the pandemic has had on school kids in so many ways. I have a passion, conviction, and commitment to public education for every student. I believe in the potential for everyone to achieve their dreams and will continue in my next 4 years to work to provide the means and support to help them accomplish that. That optimism and hope is tempered by the realities of life, the world we live in, the obstacles in front of them, and the hurdles they must overcome. By teaching them to face reality, to learn to understand and not fear knowledge, to think critically and without prejudice, and to have the fortitude and confidence to press on with a positive, can-do attitude is what guides me. I will continue to speak for the quiet or silent voices and those in the shadows. I will not waver in my conviction to issues of inclusion, diversity, equity, and anti-racism. I reflect on my life and the lives of my kids to question myself and strive to do more and better to help others. In the end, that's all I can do. Thank you.
Thank you. And now your opening statement, Robert Coleman.
Well, I'd like to begin by expressing my appreciation to the League of Women Voters for bringing us all up here today. One of the central pillars of a great community is an exemplary school district, and I believe that in Northfield we have one of the very best. This is not to say that there are not challenges, and I'm a fierce believer in continuing improvement. The most effective boards bring together dedicated individuals from many stakeholding groups. Myself, I'm a father of 2 young children in the Northfield School District, and I am a passionate advocate for public education. I've been involved in many district committees and task forces over the last several years, and through that have really come to appreciate some of the great things that are going on in our schools. But this involvement has also highlighted some of the major challenges that our district is facing. We know that we have significant work to do as we reset and recover from the past years of disrupted education and the significant mental health toll we are seeing. We know that there are always funding challenges, and we're facing chronic underfunding from the state. And we also need to double down and make sure that we are providing a superior education for all of our students, no matter what their backgrounds may be. But I'm an optimist. I believe that our schools are up to these challenges with our incredible teachers, support staff, district leaders, and most importantly, our amazing students here. We will make this happen. And I would be honored to help guide this process as a member of the Northfield School Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Opening statement, Ricky Livingston.
Good day. Rick Livingston. School board. We have 3 kids, Nicholas, Sydney, and Olivia. Elementary school, middle school, and high school. They are spread out. We've been here 7 years, and one of the best things I've noticed being here this time period, moving from Atlanta, is the commitment that I've seen in teachers and administrative staff for Northfield in these schools, the teachers, the principals. And over the years, some of the best neighbors I've had have been some members of the board and also some teachers and also the principals. I see them throughout the school year. I see them throughout the town. I see them at different events. And what it has established for me, serving on committees, working with different groups, volunteering, supporting sports, supporting academic achievements, is that school board is a foundation for a community. I mean, how the schools work, interact with communities, support, develop, and push our children and even our communities to reshape and rethink what needs to happen and grow is amazing. Some of us have seen the national statistics. I mean, over half kids coming out of high school really don't even know what they want to do. They're really not really inspired or feel passionate about anything they're going for. They're just kind of like, yeah, I'm leaving. I'm supposed to go to college. What I've seen from Northfield is a lot of kids are on point. They're working themselves well. They have encouragement. But then I've seen a lot of gaps, a lot of holes, a lot of things that have been changing for a lot of different communities moving into Northfield, into this district. And the question is not only is rising to the occasion, but overcoming it and surpassing it. And especially with the change in the last few years for COVID, in the sense of making sure we optimize our education to meet the kids where they are versus trying to pull them back from what we may have been used to growing up. Thank you.
Thank you. Opening statement, Ben Miller.
All right, thank you, Linda, and thank you to the League for hosting this event, and thank you everybody in the audience. Looking forward to answering some of your questions here today. So I've lived in Northfield since 2008, and we have 2 children in the district, one in 7th grade and a sophomore. Before that, they attended Prairie Creek, which is a charter school here that's authorized by the district. I had the honor and fortune to serve on that board at the charter school for about 7 years, and I was board chair of the Prairie Creek board over that time period as well. Stepped off that board in 2020. So I come from a bit of a background in education. My mom was a elementary school teacher in Minneapolis for over 30 years, and that's where I grew up before moving to Northfield. And so got to see kind of what that looked like from a teacher's perspective, and certainly grew to respect the profession, over the course of her career, and just understanding everything that went into teaching and the challenges of the classroom. Since that time, I've had the opportunity to work in leadership roles in government and private industry. I was director of our state food inspection program, so spent a lot of time with the legislature trying to understand kind of the ins and outs of what goes on there. And I think, good service on the board and expertise that I would look for, and I think that I would bring to the board, includes just understanding a bit of the mechanics of government. Definitely, we want to make sure that the district has enough resources in place. That was something that we really emphasized when I was on the Prairie Creek board. We knew that with enough resources in place, we could address a lot of the needs that I think you've heard others talk about in their opening statements. The legislature left $9 million on the board, or kind of on the table this last session, and I think we need to advocate for education and make sure that the district receives as much of that to support the operations, to do many of the things that we need to do in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. Opening statement, Jenny Nelson.
Thank you. Hello, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting the forum today. My name is Jenny Nelson. I am a mother of 2 boys at the Northfield Middle School, and I am the wife of Glenn Nelson, who attended Greenvale Park Elementary School and graduated Northfield High School. I graduated from New Prague High School, and then I moved on to Normandale Community College. While there, I volunteered at Poplar Bridge Elementary School as a before and after school caretaker for the kindergarten through 5th graders. And then when my son started school at Holy Cross in Webster, I volunteered for about a 7-year duration. I was heavily involved with fundraising there. I was also a room parent, and I volunteered to help supervise recess there. We transferred here to the Northfield School District during the pandemic, so I wasn't able to volunteer in the classroom in person as much as I did at our previous school, but I did help lead a book club at the Greenvale Park Elementary School. I've been working alongside the Department of OSHA for 18 years, creating policies for commercial construction companies. And that has really given me the ability to understand the Department of Education's guidelines, as well as state and federal laws that our school districts need to comply with, both in creating policy and also for maintaining compliance. This is our 3rd year enrolled here, and I have seen amazing amount of passion and dedication from our teachers and staff, and that has actually inspired and motivated me to serve in the district here. Thank you.
Thank you. And opening statement, Jeff Quinnell.
There you go. Hi. Thank you. Jeff Quinnell here. First of all, thanks to the league. Thank you for the people that showed up here today to take your time off on a beautiful, almost fall. I guess it's fall day. You could be doing some other things, but you're here, giving us some feedback on school board issues. I'm born and raised Northfield. Attended K through 12 in Northfield. I'm an Augsburg graduate. Graduated in speech communications major. Human relations emphasis, minors, sociology and psychology. 12 years on the board. I know the Northfield School Board well. I know the district well. I know the people. Been here for generations. I have an aunt that just died recently at 101, and she was a graduate of Northfield High School. So been around for a while. I think the opportunity for our schools, Northfield, I think the expectation is just to be, you take that phrase of, be the best you can be, and I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be, one of the top rated or the top rated school district our size in the state and for sure in the conference. So we definitely want to make sure we compare our school district with our peers. And as we say in the district, we kind of have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. That meaning 1 foot in the metro and kind of we're the first larger city from Farmington on down. So we kind of want to be competitive with our wages and what we're doing to attract people to come to Northfield as far as students, parents, and all of that. I'm active in the Minnesota State High School League sports guy. I've always been active with that within the thing, and just happy to be here, and I definitely appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now start our questions. Again, you have 1 minute for your answers for each question, and we'll start with Jeff Quinnell.
Just turn that off.
Probably the first question is going to be obvious. Do you support renewing and increasing the capital project bond levy for the Northfield School District? Why or why not?
We're working on that, and has not been updated in the last 10 years. And I think with inflation and kind of where we're going on that, it's probably a pretty reasonable ask. So I think what we're asking the public for, I would support that, pending it passes with the general public, obviously.
Thank you. Ben Miller.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's critical to ensuring that we maintain enough funding per pupil. And unfortunately, state funding has certainly lagged over the last, really 20 years. And the way that we fund education, kind of at the state level in Minnesota, is a definite challenge, and certainly something that I would advocate looking at. How do we improve just state support so that not so much has to come back to individual districts in form of property tax increases? That's just not the ideal way to necessarily look at funding your education system. So I definitely support that just for ongoing operations.
Thank you. Jenny Nelson.
Thank you. Of course, I support both parts of the levy. The first question, the renewal portion, I think is necessary in order to continue providing the materials, equipment, and technology to both our students and our staff. And then the second question, which is the expansion part of the levy, I think is critical to even maintaining some of our current programs because it will open the doors on our general fund, and that will allow us to potentially reduce some of the future budget reductions. Thank you.
Next, Tom Baraniak.
Absolutely, I'm in favor of both of the parts of the bond, of the levy, and there's the saying that bonds are for building and levies are for learning, and the levy will it'll free up funds from our general fund that can then be used for support of more in support of academic uses. So yes, I support it.
Ricky Livingston.
Yes, definitely I support it. A little while back I was on the committee looking at some of the needs of the Northfield school system, especially with the high school, and a lot of renovations needed there, so definitely for the bond. And the levy itself, as it relates to education, like I spoke of earlier, there's been a lot of transition and advances in the real sense of optimizing and taking education on more of a smaller group to an individual specialization for kids, because what we're seeing in kids falling back and falling behind on some things and not really being able to grasp where they are now because of a lot of things have changed in the sense of either attention span and or being connected to their system. I think we need to maximize those kind of technologies to really get kids back into play, back into really understanding and carrying forth a passion for their work, not just doing homework, but passionately going forward.
Thank you. And Robert Coleman.
Well, I join everyone else up here in supporting the capital projects levy, and those who know me know that I've been talking to everyone I know about this and promoting it. I think this gets to the district's strong commitment to stewardship of its finances and stewardship of its buildings and facilities. This money goes towards the maintenance of our facilities, the buying of books, desks, computers, And not only, as Jenny mentioned, not only do we need to renew, but if we expand vote the second part of this, this will allow the district to possibly alleviate a $500,000 strain on our general fund levy by being able to move some technology positions to this. So yes, I am absolutely a supporter of the levy.
Thank you. So for question 2, I think they're going to need more than a minute, so let's give them 90 seconds just for this question, just because I don't think you can do this next question in a minute. And it has 2 parts. So the first is, what does equity mean to you? And the second part of that same question is, what do you think are the most important steps the school district should be taking to create an equitable and inclusive culture? And we'll start this question with Robert Coleman. And again, you have 90 seconds.
Well, for me, equity means that our district is providing a fair, open opportunity for every one of our students who walks in these doors to have a superior education. You know, the steps the district has taken over the last few years, they've really doubled down on their equity commitment. This is identified as one of the major strategic goals of the district. We need to make sure that every student who's walking in any of our doors feels that they belong here. We need, and our teachers, our district leaders, need to help, are working to establish an environment that really supports this. We need to make sure that we are addressing continued shortfalls, and we know we've got discrepancies academically. We've got discrepancies with who's being sent to the office at middle school and high school level. We've got discrepancies with participation rates in our athletics and co-curricular activities. These are all things that need to be focused on and need to be addressed. Thank you.
Tom Baraniak.
So equity and equality, and some of those are often misunderstood. and equity is giving every student what they need to achieve an equal not an equal outcome, but to achieve an outcome such that if they didn't have those steps, those additional supports, they wouldn't be able to achieve it. And so, as Robert mentioned, there are shortcomings. You know, if you want to participate in a sport and you don't have transportation, you're at a disadvantage, and so so we need to provide things like that. There are things that occur in the classroom that the teachers can identify in the students that they can see what a given student is needing in additional support that they will provide, and they know that best, and we can provide the teaching assistants and the other assistants in classrooms.
Thank you. Jeff Quinnell.
Yeah, equity really means fairness across the board. I mean, we have about 4,000 kids that we've had very consistently in Northfield, and you know, we want to just make sure that everyone's being treated fairly and that they feel that they have a safe place, you know, a safe learning environment. You know, I think in the last couple of years with COVID and all of that getting out, we can kind of get back to some kind of a position where you know, we can focus more on the basics of education and just kind of really key in on more individuals and kind of try to get them performing at grade level and beyond grade level. So I think that that's definitely a part of equity, and just to make kids and parents and teachers, administrators feel like they're comfortable and working as a team, and just not being leaving, you know, kind of just really performing as a team to get the outcomes we're looking for. So I would kind of put that towards the idea of equity.
Thank you. Ricky Livingston.
Interesting. I work for the Minnesota Department of Health, and the division I work for is Health Equity Branch of the Minnesota Department of Health. And so for the last few years, one of the main things we've been pushing out is looking at balancing equity and the quality of health and health disparities in Minnesota. And my position is COVID community relief person, basically leadership. My team has done over 2,000 vaccinations throughout the state events. And what we push in MD and across the state and see the same thing in schools, be it teachers, students, and families. Everyone does not come to this school or this system with the same set of either qualities, experiences, backgrounds, or supports or resources. And so, like I mentioned earlier, the idea of providing people and families what they need for their children to succeed, to be felt inclusive, that this actually place belongs to them, especially families. And then even on top of that, teachers. Making sure, because the teachers don't have the same experience across the board either. Their resources, their training, their skill sets, making great teachers to help make great students. And so I've been involved with equity for a moment the last few years. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Miller.
All right, thank you. Some great answers so far. I think one of the interesting things about, public schools and public education is that, it is one of the key institutions to government overall, and, everyone has access to it as children growing up. So I think when we hear definitions of equity that talk about support, I think that certainly is key. Growing up again in Minnesota and thinking back to my own educational experience, the state of Minnesota has struggled with, issues around the achievement gap for decades, more so than some of the other states, which I think is unfortunate when we think about just sort of the level and quality of education that some of our students get in Minnesota and in districts like Northfield. So for me, somebody that whose background is a bit in science and research, I think, and I had a good conversation with several parents on this, for me, it's looking at the research and trying to find some innovative solutions to what specifically might work in communities like Northfield to close things like the achievement gap. And that really does speak to a lot of those underpinnings around equity, at least for me. So I think it's also a holistic approach. You can't necessarily look for the school and the school district to solve all of that. And Northfield's done a lot of work, in spaces like the Northfield Promise and looking across sort of a multi-pronged approach to addressing some of the issues that I think underlie some of our achievement differences in outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jenny Nelson.
Thank you. I think that equity means that every student has equal opportunity to not only learn, but to succeed. I know right now that we have a lot of goals pertaining to that in some of our school improvement plans, and I support those 100%. I think our school is already doing a great job and is kind of a step ahead in the game, and I'm very proud of that part of our schools. I think that one area, though, that I haven't seen in any of the plans as far as equity goes is engaging families of the school more into this issue. I think that would go a long way in helping to further our goals there and to make to strengthen the school too if we involved families more. And I think a lot of parents would appreciate being involved more in that process and in those goals as well. And then a second part would be to establish kind of an accountability group and then an action plan for that group. And then to include parents and families in that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go back to our 1-minute questions, and we'll start this one with Jenny Nelson. And there are a number of questions about what should or shouldn't be taught in classrooms. So I'm going to ask it in a more general way. And that is, as a school board member, how would you respond to parents' concerns about what is being taught in the classroom? And again, we'll start with Jenny Nelson.
I think this is quite a hot topic. And I think that parents definitely have a right to know what is being taught in their child's classrooms. However, I think there's a fine line in knowing what is being taught and demanding or asking that certain things are being taught. I mean, I think that's more what we're seeing. And I think that's a little bit disruptive. I'm very proud of the teachers, everything that they have taught our children so far in the classrooms. And I just really think that we need to focus on that, and also too on educating parents as well, to understand what their rights are and what the benefits are. Thank you.
Ricky Livingston.
Whew, it definitely is a hot topic. I think in the last 2 years, we've come to the middle school and the elementary school about some of the lessons being taught to our children, because we had certain concerns, either how our children responded to those lessons, or how it affected them, or how it affected other people around them and how they were engaged. And so it's the idea, yes, parents have a right to know. Parents have a right to be involved with that process. But the ideal is, with parents dictating what will or won't happen, it's not a question of that as much as in a collaborative. If we talk about equity and parents being involved all the time with our school system, where our kids learn better and grow better, which it does, same thing has to happen when parents have concern. But making sure those concerns they have aren't concerns based off of something they've heard versus what actually goes on in school. Because that relationship that teacher, their system has, will prevent a lot of this. And for us, it did help a good bit. And we were thankful for the time we had to talk about what concerned our kids around some subjects.
Thank you. Jeff Quinnell.
Yes, some good points brought out. I mean, part of the takeaways I'm getting is to be invite families more into the conversation and have accountability action plans, and to remember that each one of us up here, we're elected officials, and it's our job for whatever the people that we know, if and when elected, that you're helping them stand up for getting their word out and standing up for their family and guarding them. I think we do a fairly good job at that with the district now, the administration. I think that people get opportunities to speak out at, showing up for public comment. I think a great way to always voice your opinion is to, contact, just send an email at board@northfieldschools.org, but just kind of to be more engaged in the conversation of working with families and as a community. And I just think that we've kind of all been just kind of in a box for the last couple of years. I think we're kind of getting back to more common ground and a lot of good ideas there. So thank you.
Tom Baraniak.
I agree. There have been a lot of good answers to this, and like Jenny's, I think there are a lot of misunderstandings about what is taught or not taught, or to what level it is. And if parents don't like something that's being taught, they do have the option of opting out their child from the lesson or the activity. But what one parent may not like doesn't mean another parent has an objection to it. So one can't really dictate to the other one what should or shouldn't be taught. But they can, like I say, they can opt their child out of it. So I work in physics. We search for the ultimate answers down to the smallest part, and there's nothing to me wrong with learning.
Thank you. Robert Coleman.
Well, I think parents deserve the right to know what's going on in their classrooms. And I think a lot of the concerns we see can be alleviated when our teachers and parents are having discussions around what is going on. As board members, it's important that the board is looking at these issues from about 30,000-foot level, that they can't be involved in the dictating of what is going on in individual classrooms in the curriculum. They can have an important role to play in making sure that we are having strong communication with our parents, but we have to recognize that we've hired a trained, skilled teaching force here, and we need to value and respect them. Thank you.
Ben Miller.
Sure. We certainly have seen a lot, small and vocal minority in the state and nationally, looking at some of these issues around school boards, and be that, book banning, be that teaching of certain curriculum. I think, fortunately, to a lesser extent here in Northfield, though I do think that we need to, be conscious of that and have a strategy if that were to, become more of a present issue here in the community, because it can certainly be disruptive. I think we're not going to be in a place, as a public institution, where people are going to agree 100% of the time on what's taught in the classroom, but as board members, we're a reflection of the community that elects us. And, certainly parents are part of that and a voice, but so is the broader community. And so are the students themselves, and I think that needs to be taken into account when we look at these issues. Certainly I would not support anything like book banning or anything along those lines at all. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question, we'll start with Ben Miller. And there's several questions kind of related to the same issue of declining enrollment, how it would affect extracurricular activities and such. So what would you recommend for attracting and retaining students?
Yeah, that's a great question. And certainly as previous board member and chair of the charter schools, the charter schools play a role in kind of, the number of students that end up attending the district here. I think that's been a great partnership over the last 20 years or more, where those charter schools have existed. And Northfield's one of the few districts left in the state that actually authorizes the charter schools and works closely with them. That said, I think the pandemic also taught us that there's a place for distance learning for some members of the community, and that certainly is something where the district still enjoys per pupil distribution from the state as well. But I think I would go back to what I talked about before. I think we do need to work with our local legislatures and the legislature overall to look at the funding models, frankly, for the state overall. That is going to be key in making sure that not only our district, but in facing declining enrollment, but others are adequately funded the way that education should be.
Thank you. Jenny Nelson.
Thank you. Declining enrollment seems to be an issue that never really presented itself until now, with more students leaving to go to other schools and things like that. As for the attracting and retaining students, I think Northfield Schools is doing a great job offering so many programs, from anything from the arts to music, sports, and they're all phenomenal programs in my mind, just from a parent's perspective on the schools. And so I think they're doing everything right on that end. One area though that I haven't seen much work being done yet is trying to maximize enrollment using community outreach. There are a lot of students that are in the district and not enrolled here, and I don't think that we're doing a good enough job reaching out to them and their families. Thank you.
Robert Coleman.
We need to continue to get the message out that we have great schools here in Northfield. We're a constant draw. Open enrollment is definitely a benefit to our schools here. But we need to dig in there. We also need to continue to work and address the challenges that our district faces if we're going to retain our student base. But we know our enrollment problems are based on broader trends. The major issue in Northfield is the lack of affordable housing. Families can't move to Northfield right now. And so this is something we need to advocate at the local level for housing for our families, and we need to advocate at the state level for better funding and to support our schools. Thanks.
Tom Baraniak.
So one of the reasons for the decline in enrollment is the birth rate is declining. And so what we can do in Northfield is build on our strengths where we're niche, does a listing of public schools in Northfield out of all the schools in Minnesota is ranked number 15. So we have that. We can strengthen our technology program, career technology, bring back agriculture. I think if we had a better high school, we could attract people to that facility. Associated with that is if we don't do something with the hockey, we could potentially lose hundreds of students. So we have to think more broad and more broadly and bigger. And then of course it's a city problem with lack of affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Cornell.
Yeah, I've been the liaison for sports to the school board for years, Minnesota State High School League, and really, it's sports and activities. So you want to find, kids to get involved in something you're good at, something you're going to have some fun at. Maybe you're good at it, maybe you're not. So only really 2% of our budget, I'm the treasurer, $60 million budget, 80% of a budget goes to salaries and benefits, but only 2% of that goes to extra, curricular as far as the sports and activities. So just encouraging kids to go out and have some fun and get involved in, the extracurriculars that they're in. As far as, and also we can add a lot of stuff, which we just did recently, community ed, we added cheerleading to that and chess when we were kind of like get programs that are kind of get in trouble, we can shift them over. So there's some flexibility to look at there. As far as enrollment, I kind of think if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think Northfield, when you just, Tom, thanks for pointing that out, a rank of 15, to brag up our strengths and overcome our weaknesses. And I think it's just getting more people to town, figuring out how they can afford those houses, and bring some kids to town so we can have some new kids. So I think a combination of things is obviously that, and to use that word that gets worked over a lot, collaboration. So thank you.
Thank you. Ricky Livingston.
Yes, cornerstone collaboration. Talked earlier about schools basically being a foundation for a community, and that collaboration is working at getting those housing prices down or rebuilt, because I've known half a dozen families in Minneapolis and some from Bloomington area and also some from Apple Valley who looked at coming to Northfield but couldn't. Yeah, and some from Faribault too. But the ideal is they want to come, and the high school being built up, definitely so. And one thing I know the high school needs that upset me when I found it didn't have it, a marching band. Come on. I was in marching band. My son plays drums like I do, but there's no marching band. So just that extracurricular activity, the affordable housing, really collaborating with the community to make this even more welcoming than it is. We have Jesse James Day, and so we can still boost Northfield up to get more families here, more great families to grow, and a marching band. Thank you.
Thanks. With the next question, we'll start with Ricky Livingston. It's a rather serious topic. Each time a tragic school shooting occurs in our country, there are calls for increased safety measures in schools. So what actions would you support being taken by the school board to increase school safety?
Definitely a serious topic. We talked about this a good bit, and even my children and I have discussed situations involving such scenarios and what's best for them. I retired after 24 years in the Navy Marine Corps. I've been in 3 wars. I'm retired. December will be 12 years as I retired, so I'm old. But the idea, safety is paramount. But creating safety and reinforcing the plans we already have, prevention and planning in a way that doesn't frighten kids or doesn't scare families, but encourage them that this is going to work. So if something ever occurs, and Lord, hopefully it doesn't ever occur, our children, our teachers, and our families can trust that what's been done is best, and they can be confident in the plans. But a big, strong part of that is making sure we have the feelers and the opportunities and the access for students or anyone else who needs to talk about something going on in their life versus taking this other road out. Because unfortunately, I've dealt with a lot of suicides, even in the military, I've had to deal with. So making sure we have opportunities for people to talk, understand, trust in the system, and help and collaborate, make the system better, and feel good about it.
Thank you. Jeff Quinnell.
Yeah, I think almost in a lot of sense for security, and thanks for your service, just almost to have a military type of operation that you're ready to act in a second. It's the first 10 minutes of any attack like that really matters. And I think a lot as far as, you can profile all you want for people that may or may not do that, but we just need to make people feel comfortable. People feel love being in school, feel people welcome and stuff, so they're not that disconnected that doesn't happen. Could that happen here? Sure. And I always say, as the expression goes, if you see something, say something, do something. So it's an ongoing concern, but I think we're working on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Miller.
Yeah, I know the district has plans in place, and they're experts in this field. The districts can work with and look at, and would certainly defer to their expertise in terms of structural safety and who to look at. And I think one of the key pieces is also having access to appropriate mental health resources within the school. That's key. But more than that, I think is we've had conversations. My kids are in 7th and 10th grade. And when I went to school, this isn't something that we even had to think about or imagine. And I would certainly like to get back to a place where that was the case. So part of this is having conversations with our students too, asking them, is this an environment that you want your kids to live in? And really, educating them as to some of the root causes of this and encouraging them to vote accordingly.
Thank you. Jenny Nelson.
Thank you. It seems like a week cannot go by without hearing about a school shooting or a tragic event happening in a school. And as a parent, I can't tell you, it's almost devastating, even if you don't know anyone at that school, or even if it's 1,000 miles away. I was also very relieved when our superintendent, Dr. Hillman, went through an extensive list of all of the safety measures that we have at our schools, both our physical facility measures, as well as some of the measures that we're taking to try to handle some of our behavioral issues in our schools and to try to get ahead of that. And I think that those are all steps that made me confident enough. And I know, though, that we could use improvement. One of those areas of improvement, I think, is we could have a district-wide information session for teachers, staff, and parents, where we could ask questions, and then a lot of our fears would be relieved there too. Thanks.
Thank you. Robert Coleman.
Well, we need to continue the safety measures that the district has taken. We now have secure entrances at every building, and we need to make sure that all of our staff and students are trained for what could be, what could happen. But we can't harden our way out of this problem. We can't turn our schools into prisons. We need to make sure we're providing the essential mental health supports. Our district has, one of its benchmarks is making sure that every child has a trusting adult to turn to. And that's something we really need to make sure is happening. Finally, I agree with what Jeff said, that we just need to make sure that everyone is feeling loved, that having a school community like that's what's going to really help with these issues.
Thank you. And Tom Baraniak.
I agree with everybody else here. Everybody's had some really good comments. All the schools have been remodeled, and they all have secure entrances. The locks on the doors, you don't need a key. The teacher can just close it from the inside and lock it, so that saves time. Actually, my hometown was the location of the prom shooting 5-6 years ago now, and as the people have mentioned, the importance of connections with students and an adult. They need to feel safe there. They need to be able to talk to people and as Jeff says, speak up, and there's the 411 contact line. and then also the issues around IDE, where people who feel, we don't want to marginalize people. Everybody should feel welcome at the schools. Thank you.
So I think we can squeeze in one more question before we go to closing statements. And for this, we'll start with Tom Baraniak. So not all people have children in school. So why should voters care about the school board election, and for that matter, your capital levy question, if they don't have children in school?
And also hopefully a new high school question. They should, because somebody cared for them when it was their turn in school. And the future generation is the generation that's going to pay their Social Security if they're retired. Or if you don't have kids, the kids are our future, and we have to do the best we can. It's our fundamental requirement. I mean, it's in Minnesota. It's one of the two things that we're required to fund is the schools and roads, it goes back to our founding fathers that education is the most fundamental thing we do, and it comes with a cost. And as taxpayers, nobody wants to pay that, but dang it, you have to, and we have to do the right thing, we're all in this together. Thank you.
Robert Coleman.
Well, I agree with Tom. We're all in this together. We're all part of a community and need to be working to help each other out. The same way that we support our senior center, our CAC. The schools are a central portion of this community, and strong schools help us all. Strong schools help with property values. They make people want to move here. Strong schools. It's just what we need.
Ricky Livingston.
Back again. Collaboration in the community. Community is everyone, and like was said earlier by Tom, you had your time too. You were supported by your community, and so it's the idea of balancing the measure. And it's a big thing, I think, too. I was talking with some of my older neighbors. The ideal is we've seen a shift in the last few years of civility and a sense of manners and such. And so I told a lot of my around me, why don't y'all start a program at this local school, on remembering what the manners were back in the day or something. It's just the ideal of I see a lot of volunteers, a lot of older people who don't have children, who've never had children, stepping into the school, supporting it, and getting enriched from it, and getting so much more back from those kids, in a sense of reminding them of what was or what they wanted or where they're even going, looking at their future. And so help make the future great by staying connected.
Thank you. Ben Miller.
Certainly we're lucky and fortunate in Northfield. It's a community with obviously 2 colleges here that understands the value of education and how institutions of education contribute back to the community overall. So I think we're fortunate because of that, and our voters understand that and understand the value of having a solid public education system within the town. And right, it certainly drives many of the economic indicators within town as well. We can tie that back to housing values, we can tie that back to tax base, we can tie that back to desirability of a place to live. Certainly it's in the interest of the community to make sure that we have good schools, that we can recruit a good workforce and retain people here and deliver the best education that we can for our kids. It's certainly one of the reasons that we moved from Northfield from St. Paul 15, 20 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Nelson.
Thank you. This question really hits home for me because I was fortunate enough to become a very young homeowner myself. And at that time, of course, I had no kids, no interest in the schools, aside from the fact that I had poured my heart out into volunteering in a public school system during college. And it was there that I saw how much the schools meant to each and every one of those kids, no matter where they came from. no matter how much money their parents made, I saw how much of a difference it made. And I think that it's really critical to support our schools, no matter what your reasons are, where you're at in your life. But for me, I'm just really glad that I had that experience. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jeff Quinnell.
Yeah, if you only have parents and people that really care about the schools that have kids in school, I mean, obviously the kids are going to graduate and they're going to be gone. And I think that a lot of times in Northfield, I mean, or anywhere, you talk to someone, well, why do I need to support the schools? I don't have any kids in schools. Well, you know, we have to have a community base of saying, hey, well, you used to have kids in school and you graduated from here. So it's kind of like, you know, if we want to maintain that, there's some things that we're going to have to do to make some sacrifices to have quality schools. So again, I think that that's kind of something that we need to focus on is just, you know, looking for ideas. I think Northfield, too, is a great retirement community. I think it's a lot of people want to come here and retire. And we also, too, want to keep the balance of, you know, comparing taxes to different cities and stuff. And you know, a lot of times people are looking at comparing to a, you know, a Lakeville, or, you know, wherever else. You know, what am I really getting out of Northfield for bang for the buck as opposed to, you know, going somewhere else? So we got to be competitive in our, you know, fees and taxes.
Thank you. So we now are ready for our closing statements. And again, you have 1 minute, and we will start with Robert Coleman.
Well, thank you again for inviting us here today, and thank you to the audience, and thank you to all of the other candidates up here today. They've chosen to offer their skills and talents to this community by choosing to run for school board. I'm a passionate believer in public education who is committed to listening to our community, our teachers, our students, and as we work together to tackle these current challenges and whatever the world may throw at us next. With my experience as an advocate for our young learners, as well as my commitment to delving into whether all of our students are being best served, I believe I would bring an important new voice to the board. And thank you again, and I humbly ask for your support.
Thank you. Jeff Quinnell.
Again, thank you to the board, to the league for sponsoring this and attendance showing up, and of course to Tom, Robert, to Ricky, Ben, and Jenny. Just good to get some feedback. I've been on the board for a long time, 12 years. I'm going to work hard to get reelected and to serve. I mean, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of ins and outs of the community and the district. So I'm motivated to keep moving forward, and I'm just glad that this event's here. It's really good to meet you guys. And guys is a general term there. Anyway, it's just grateful to be in Northfield. Born and raised here. I love this community, and it's where I live. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Tom Baraniak.
Thank you for hosting us, and thank you for all the other members. I mean, having 6 people trying out for the school board says a lot about our community and our desire to help. In the end, I'm a citizen servant. I'm here to help the students, the teachers, the staff, and the school as best I can, and I'm confident, and I've shown that in the last 4 years that I can serve the school district and the community in positive, constructive ways, and I'll continue to do that in my next term on the school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Nelson.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for coming out today in support of our schools. Transitioning from a small private school ourselves into the Northfield public schools was an incredibly difficult decision for me. But the teachers and the principals here welcomed us right in and actually helped make it one of the best things that I have done for my family. And so I want to work hard here in the district so that every family here can have that same outcome. Because education is the foundation upon which we build our future. And I think that we have a duty to build that together, along with its challenges and its victories. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Miller.
All right, well, thank you to the league, and thank you to the audience and your wonderful questions during this forum, and thank you to fellow candidates as well. It's been a real treat and privilege to listen to people's responses, and I think you have some great choices for school board candidates this year, so I'm excited for that. But my background, again, is school board chair of the Prairie Creek Community School, and then just working at different levels of government, be that state, be that federal. I think I understand the mechanics of government well. I understand what the role of a board is within the context of public education. And, I would certainly, if you've liked what you've heard from me today, I would certainly welcome your support and would love your vote. And thank you.
Thank you. Ricky Livingston.
Thank you for the League of Women Voters for having this event. Definitely appreciate it. And definitely thank you all for taking your time out on a Saturday, coming out and listening to us speak. And definitely did make a good point. It's a great list of candidates up here. And so, but the main reason why I pushed myself out here, I've been involved in school systems in about 6 different states in 3 countries. And because military, I even volunteered when I was overseas in Japan and other places because I just always loved schools. Texas was a little difficult, but I'll talk about that another time. But the ideal is our kids are growing, our kids are changing, the systems are changing. Last 2 years has had a great bump and shift. And I've been to hundreds of schools in Minnesota doing the work I do. And what I've seen in Northfield is just wonderful. But I want to see more. I want to see better. I want to make it the best school system I can for my children, for all the other kids I see who are growing and loving this place. And so, service. It's about service and dedication, and I'm willing to step up. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I'd like to thank the candidates for their participation in this forum and for their willingness to serve the community by running for public office. I would like to remind the audience that the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters, and sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement by the League for any candidate. The League of Women Voters of Northfield and Cannon Falls, the Academic Civic Engagement Office at St. Olaf College, and the Center for Community and Civic Engagement at Carleton College would like to thank you all for coming today and to our internet audience for viewing. We'd especially like to remind the candidates and those listening that the forum will be aired in its entirety and available for viewing on the League of Women Voters website. The League studies issues important to our members and to the health of our communities, and if you're interested in finding more about what we do and then how you can make a difference, please pick up a membership brochure at the registration table or visit us at www.lwvmn.org. You can find more information about candidates and voting at vote411.org or at the League of Women Voters URL that I just read. Links to all the candidate forums and additional voter information can also be found on their local website, lwvnorthfieldmn.org. As we have learned, every vote does count. This year, Election Day is November 8th, Tuesday, November 8th. So if you're going to vote in person, the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can also vote early up through November 7th. So please check the Secretary of State website to find an early voting location near you. Oh, right here. You can come right to City Hall. Again, thank you for attending, and please take a friend or family member and vote on November 8th. So thank you.